Men that have cheated. Why did you do it? Story 1. I broke up with a gal and she said, no. Honestly, I didn't know that was possible. I started seeing other people. Reply. I had that once, weirdest thing ever. I spent about 2 weeks preparing for the breakup. I thought that I had a rebuttal for every objection. I never even thought that no was an option. No. What? No, we're not breaking up. I just stood there dumbfounded and then went and got drunk. A year later, I took a job in Europe, put my stuff in storage and told her the lease was up at the end of the month. Story 2. Because I was young and self-centered and didn't really love her and also on meth. BTW, these don't excuse cheating, but they do describe the reality of my situation as a weak man. Reply. Well, that was unexpected. Story 3. I think for me it boiled down to being checked out emotionally but without the spine or backbone to end it. The general excuse I used to make myself feel better about the shitty actions were we weren't compatible anyway. But that had nothing to do with the damage I caused to the heart. I'm a little more remorseful and try to be considerate these days, but I fully expect karma to come throw the egg on my face someday. Reply. Whenever anyone says this, I cannot wrap my mind around what is so challenging about ending a relationship. Can someone elaborate on this? Is it because you made the other person too dependent on you, and now they are in love with an image of you and not who you actually are? So you're scared of destroying that for them? Story 4. There was no way I would have passed grade 12 otherwise. Reply. I really thought you meant you slept with your teacher at first. Reply 2. Genius answer. My high AF brain immediately went to the sexual sense of cheating. Reply 3. Hey, if the way to get your diploma is to bend your hot MILF teacher over her desk and take her to Pound Town, that's what you gotta do. Story 5. Because I was trying to find value and my self-worth in sleeping with women. Growing up, I was far from being a ladies' man. In college, I worked on myself to improve my self-confidence as all my life I had been longing to have someone who liked me back. All I ever wanted was to have a girlfriend. As my self-esteem grew, so did my luck with the ladies. Eventually, I was able to get a girlfriend, someone who was good to me, but I wasn't satisfied. I continued to look for validation from other women, which turned into cheating on her. I thought that I had discovered self-confidence because I could be more social and was more outgoing, but I realized that on the inside, I was still insecure. Growing up in my family, there were no good examples of healthy relationships either. All my uncles were womanizers. This probably had an impact on me as well. Reply. Wow, this sounds exactly like my cousin who cheated on his wife. Sadly, their marriage ended over it. We couldn't understand why he'd cheat on her. She was beautiful, smart, talented, and so good to him. But our uncles are like yours, and his parents divorced over cheating too when he was little. I still don't really get it though. We wondered if he somehow didn't feel validated by her, but honestly I saw her pump him up all the time. She would publicly post such mushy stuff about them and how hot he was, would slap his butt at family stuff and wink at him, was seemingly all over him. Could that really not have been enough simply because he needed that from more than one person? Or was she just not doing that stuff behind closed doors? Reply 2. Somewhat similar story, but once I finally got fit, got confidence, learned to interact with women, small private school really set me back a bit. I started slaying it. I asked a few for relationships. Some asked me. I didn't cheat, but I never let said relationships last more than 3 to 12 weeks no matter how much I liked the girl. Onto the next big titty blonde. Ideally, but more likely the next semi-attractive and skinny girl. Eventually I start to feel empty and wanted more. Tried a few relationships, a few crazies, but finally found a sane one. I'm happily married now. I'm glad I went through that phase. It proved to me I can do it. I had to think hard before proposing that, this is it. You can't ever do it again, but it was the right call. Got it all out of my system. The guys who I've seen cheat on their wives, usually met their wife in college. They never got it out of their system. Story 6. Jumping the track on Rainbow Road isn't cheating, Billy, it's strategy. Story 7. Out of anger, frustration, and stupidity. I miss her every day. Reply. Which one do you miss? Story 8. Because my wife would get drunk and beat me. Reply. I'm so sorry that happened to you, that's absolutely terrible. I really hope you're far away from her now. Reply 2. She punched you in the mouth and it landed on another pussy. That's on her. Story 9. It's very addictive being wanted. Especially if you aren't often. The shame makes it worse, strangely enough. You can't really talk to anyone about being tempted or even crossing the line. There's no support system from your friends or family that tell you you're an idiot. And being addicted, it's very thought telling yourself. Reply. That's very true. I came close to cheating with someone I didn't even think was very physically attractive just because she seemed to genuinely like me so much. She was smart and funny and interesting to talk to and seemed to really appreciate me for who I was. She was also nuts and looking for a way out of her own shitty marriage. But I got very taken in by that feeling of, this person likes me and wants to be around me. Of course, only someone you aren't in a serious relationship with is going to be that way about you all the time. Story 10. In a letter, after having to ask for sex for years. Then having the sex that I did scrape up be the same 3 position in the same order. There was no oral for me, though I performed every time, mostly because I like it. Never having her initiate or even show the slightest interest in intimacy, not just sex, but any kind of intimacy. Years of not being show any kind of value at all, even though I was sole income source, and great father, and a helpful husband. After years of seeing that my only value was in the money I made. Told to pick up more overtime, and spend more time away from home and the kids, after taking a little off because I was underfoot too much. I then worked so much 70 hours a week minimum, that I ended up spending a lot of time working directly with a very lovely lady. I was spending more time with her than with my wife and kids. She made me feel appropriate and seen. She was kind and funny, always willing to listen to how I felt and what I thought. We bonded and became very close friends, until one day it became more than that. For a few months I felt alive. I was happy. I was finally getting the emotional and physical intimacy that I had craved for years. Someone valued me for who I was and not what I could for her. I owe her so much for helping me see how miserable I was and that I deserved better for myself. She was the one that showed me that I was slowly dying in the life I was living. That is when I knew I needed out. Reply. I could have written the exact same answer, 3 years of begging for sex, and getting it maybe once every 4 to 5 months, and was as enthusiastic as a piece of plywood, followed by 3 years of no sex, and working my butt off while she bought things we didn't need. Also calling me worthless and dumb. The only reason I stayed was because I knew I'd only see the kids once every 2 weeks. The first time she told me to go fuck other people, I didn't. The second time she told me, I didn't. The third time she told me, it was only then that I realized she was already done with me. No one could say that if they loved someone. I lasted 2 more years, having met someone I could be close to, and be intimate with. We moved in together a year after we split up and were together 10 years. The one thing I still remember, and have told everyone, there's nothing more loud than silence. Sitting next to someone in dead silence is no way to live. Story 11. It was late and I was groggy, she initiated and I was lonely. Rationalized it out as we hadn't been dating that long and had never actually discussed exclusivity. Besides, it was only hand stuff. I was more providing a service. Older and wiser. For anyone who doesn't know, cheating is not really about what you do. It's about whether or not your partner would be upset if they found out and/or if you're doing something that you've talked about not doing. Basically, the problem with cheating is lying and sneaking. If you feel the urge to cheat, it's time to re-evaluate your relationship. At the end of the day, you either wanted something bad enough that you were willing to hurt someone you care about, or you didn't care about them at all. Either it's time to talk. Subscribe.